Welcome back, and before I break down this episode of Limitless, I have to remind you that my 68-page graphic novel, Everlasting Survivors Volume 1 All Day Long, is available now for the second chance on Indiegogo. There is a link in the description. You can pick up a hat, a shirt, any one of multiple covers. Every order gets a sticker. Any help that you can do will be much appreciated. Thank you so much, and here it is. Limitless, episode 13. Stop me before I hug again. Finch and Harris show up to a crime scene, a rape/murder, while Boyle is explaining it all. Brian's brain says this isn't very fun and pulls us away into an almost Barney-style TV show. The dinosaur in Brian's brain wants to change scary words, so this is going to be a really weird one. Even really early on, this changing of bad words to comfortable words is weird and just not very becoming of the show. Like, the title, Stop Me Before I Hug Again, is related to the fact that in this new dinosaur-friendly way, things are, bad guys are called serial huggers. And I find it awfully irritating. And it's not just, rape and murder, stab and blood are replaced as well, with tickle and soda pop, and serial huggers are named after ice cream, so one's Mr. Pralines and Cream. It's just, it's a little over the top and excessively childish for how Brian is usually more fun. And back at the FBI, all of our known entities are sitting in a conference room preparing to listen to an FBI profiler who wrote a book about serial huggers. And this whole premise of the show, this changing of the terminology, has really gotten under my skin. So I just feel annoyed by so much. Is it the terminology change that's bothering me, or is it really that this profiler is a pompous guy? Brian himself even is distracted within the meeting playing on his phone, and David Englander even calls him out on being distracted and playing on his phone. But Brian says that he's chasing down a different lead, looking at things from another angle. Thankfully, it seems Brian is also getting upset with his dinosaur subconscious, also saying that he needs to say certain words at one point, and that it's not the same context when he says things. Although there's another case to be made that it could be the seriousness of these cases of the serial hugger that is what's getting to Brian. The annoying FBI profiler dude who wrote the book on catching serial huggers wants to get Brian on his team full time, and he tells Brian how the profilers are the rock stars of the FBI. So when he leaves New York, Brian asks Naz if he can go to Quantico to train with the profilers, and she says that, she wants to have a good relationship with them, so she allows him to go, but he needs a handler, so she sends Harris, and Harris is less than pleased with this whole thing. Thankfully, Brian calls David Englander weird. He's that profiler guy, even while Naz is mulling over the concept of whether or not to let Brian go. And on that road trip with Rebecca, it is clear to see that Brian is really into her, complimenting her in his mind, and thus we can hear it, on how good of a road trip partner she is. And, he's really just especially into her brain. But it's also her brain that really is causing him issues at the moment, because she is bringing up Senator Mara and the possibility of being on NCT, thinking that she may have, she thinks that he may have seen the bullet coming, which we all know that he did, because, again, we could hear his thoughts, because that's the beauty of him being a main character. Brian does everything within his power to change the subject off of Mara. While in Quantico, he solves 2 or 3 cases just in one day. And at night, he's telling Rebecca stories about his misbegotten youth to distract her from investigating Senator Mara. As the road trip is concluding, Englander doesn't want Brian to leave. He is trying to sell him on the idea of both doing good with the FBI, but also doing well by selling the story. He tells him, Englander tells Brian that he made 7 figures selling his book deal, and he's also sold the movie rights to his book. This conversation really makes me think that there's a chance David Englander is actually a bad guy, and Brian kind of backs up that thought process, because on their trip back, he wants to stop by and talk to one of the people that got put on death row because of this book that was written, and all the high profileness of the profiler. Now at the prison, Brian and Rebecca are at. Brian is convinced that the person behind bars is innocent, even though he believes that he did the crime. And so when they get back to New York, Brian tries to convince Naz that this is all about truth, justice, and the American way. And of course, I'm a sucker for that because I love me some Superman. It's just such a big, weird, unexpected twist that the guy who's actually innocent believes that he's guilty, and that the cops are trying to prove that you're innocent even though you believe that you're guilty. It's some real uncharted territory for TV. On a side mission, Brian goes to Sands about getting a replacement coat with Senator Mara's blood on it without NZT in his system. That way that if the FBI look into it, they can verify that Senator Mara doesn't have NZT in his blood. Brian is explaining to Boyle and Harris, also Naz, how that a man can be innocent but also believe that he is guilty. How that false memories can be implanted. The lead psychiatrist behind the memory implant project was also the psychiatrist for the man behind bars. All of this stuff is so much better than the dinosaur replacement word BS that we've been going through. So I've been a big fan of all the stuff that we've been doing since getting away from that early on dinosaur stuff. But I mean, the problem is that even though the dinosaur is gone, we still have to deal with the repercussions of him being a part of Brian's subconscious. Because even the doctor who messed with the dude's brain, because everything that we see is filtered through Brian's mind, everything he says is the cutesy pralines and cream and serial hugger stuff. When Boyle and Harris go to see the doctor, Brian doesn't go along. He lies and says that his dad has a health scare so that he can go meet with Sands and switch out the coats with the blood. But while Brian is doing that, we do see that Harris and Boyle are talking to the doctor, and he seems both a bit nervous and suspicious, but also somewhat calm and cool and collected. The thing is that it's revealed a little bit later as to why that he can have all these different dynamics going on, and it's because he's not actually guilty of it. He knows he's guilty of the memory thing, but not the actual crime itself, which is what we were kind of being led to believe was going to be the case. But the craziest part is that after Boyle and Harris leave the doctor, they want to stop by the evidence locker where Brian is currently trying to switch out the coats. And while Brian is still working on getting that accomplished and powering down the system and having the tech guy locked up, not locked, but unable to get out of the area, he's still in the process of doing his thing when they show up. Thankfully, Brian, who, is really close to being done if he gets caught, finishes it up, and the tech guy says that, the system malfunctioned again, not realizing that it wasn't a malfunction, but it was really, Finch. Brian is being a big brain on the next day when he has the idea to go see the psychiatrist as Mike Ikerson, like he did the last time that he checked himself in for help. And while waiting to talk to the doctor, he rifles through his files and realizes that it wasn't the doctor who is the serial hugger, as they call it, but it was a rich dude's son. The same rich dude who funded the brain manipulation stuff. After it gets out on the news that the guy who was behind bars is being released and that everything is right with the world, we see that the David, the profiler, flew all the way to New York from D.C., still trying to get Brian on his team. Although that's not all he wants now. Now he wants him to work with him to rewrite a book because he knows they can make big money. Brian doesn't agree to do the book thing. Obviously, he can't really do it. But back at the house, we end with Brian talking to the man behind the dinosaur costume. And honestly, this one just fell a little flat for me. To me, it's a 3 out of 5. It's a totally fine episode. It's just not the top tier quality that I've been used to with this show. Thank you so much for checking out this Wednesday rewind of Limitless. And before I get out of here, I got to remind everybody that my Everlasting Survivors Volume 1 All Day Long Second Chance Indiegogo is up live for another month, and all support is appreciated. There are so many things. There are 3 new covers. There are the 2 original covers. There are 2 posters. There's a sticker. There's a hat. There's a t-shirt. There's all kinds of stuff. It's all worthwhile, and it's so much appreciated if you can help support. Thank you.